K-drama cycle begins. 4 months, fans believed Faye would walk into 2026 exactly the way she ended the last year, careful, calculated, and surrounded by familiar faces. But one quiet schedule update changed everything. A single name appeared beside hers. Not announced, not teased, just there. And within hours, fan circles were already calling it what it felt like. A reveal no one was prepared for. Faye's new partner wasn't introduced with press photos or dramatic statements. Instead, it surfaced through patterns, shared rehearsal slots, overlapping call times, the same private entrances used again and again. Industry watchers noticed first, then fans followed, and when they connected the dots, the reaction was instant. This wasn't a random casting choice. Whoever this new partner is, they were selected with intention. Their background, their previous roles, even their public image suggested a shift in tone. Softer in some ways, riskier in others. It was the kind of pairing that doesn't aim for comfort, it aims for conversation. What made the reveal even more shocking was how tightly it had been protected. No leaks, no accidental sightings, no blurry photos. In an industry where secrets rarely survive, this one stayed buried until it didn't. And when it surfaced, fans began asking the same question. Why now? Some believe 2026 is Faye's reset year, a moment to redefine her range, her chemistry, and the type of story she wants to tell. Others think this new partner represents something more strategic, an attempt to step into a new audience space without abandoning her core fandom. But there was another reason this reveal hit so hard. Timing. Because just as fans were processing Faye's unexpected pairing, news broke from a completely different corner of the production world. An emergency on Yoko's set. Filming delays. Sudden silence. And a wave of concern that spread just as fast as the excitement around Faye. Suddenly, 2026 didn't feel like a smooth continuation. It felt volatile. And that's exactly why fans can't look away. The silence around Yoko's situation made everything feel heavier. No official statement. No reassuring post. Just a sudden pause in production schedules that fans noticed almost immediately. When a set goes quiet without explanation, speculation fills the space fast, and this time was no different. At first, it was described as a minor delay. Then sources began using a different word. Emergency. Crew members were reportedly asked to step back. Certain scenes were postponed indefinitely. A few insiders hinted that it wasn't an accident, but not something that could simply be brushed aside either. Enough to stop filming. Enough to worry people who had been there since day one. Fans tried to connect the dots. Was it exhaustion? An on-set incident? A personal matter? No one knew, and that uncertainty only amplified the shock already surrounding Faye's sudden new partner reveal. What made it even more unsettling was the contrast. On one side, Faye was being quietly repositioned. New chemistry tests, longer rehearsals, closed-door meetings that suggested confidence and forward motion. On the other, Yoko's project felt frozen in place, like the year itself had slammed on the brakes. And yet, the two stories couldn't be separated. Because for a long time, fans had viewed Faye and Yoko as moving in parallel. Different paths, same rhythm. When one surged, the other followed. When one slowed, balance was restored. But 2026 broke that pattern. For the first time, their trajectories diverged sharply. As days passed, more details about Faye's new partner began to surface, not officially, but through behavior. The way staff reacted around them, the careful distance kept from cameras, the quiet confidence in how schedules were adjusted to prioritize their scenes together. This wasn't an experiment. It felt like a commitment. Fans began rewatching old interviews, searching for clues. Offhand comments about wanting to be challenged. Mentions of stepping outside comfort zones. Suddenly, those words felt less like talk and more like foreshadowing. At the same time, concern for Yoko deepened. The lack of updates became the loudest message of all. When productions want to calm fans, they speak. When they don't, it usually means they can't. Some fans worried about health. Others feared creative conflict. A few whispered about behind-the-scenes tension that had finally reached a breaking point. None of it was confirmed. All of it felt possible. And then came the shift. A small sign that things were changing again. Yoko was spotted entering a private facility, not a hospital, but not a studio either. No cameras, no fan service, just a brief moment that suggested recovery, recalibration, or preparation. Something was happening, but on her terms. That sighting softened the panic but didn't erase the questions. Meanwhile, Faye's new partner was finally seen clearly for the first time. Not in a dramatic reveal. Just walking beside her, relaxed, unguarded, like this pairing had always existed. That image alone sent Fandom spaces into overdrive. Because chemistry doesn't need promotion when it's real. And that's when fans realized 2026 wasn't about a single shock. It was about transformation. Faye stepping into a bold new chapter, unafraid of reaction. Yoko navigating a pause that might redefine her path entirely. Two artists, two moments, unfolding in real time. No announcements yet. No confirmations. Just movement. And in this industry, movement always means something is coming. As the days rolled forward, the atmosphere around both stories grew more intense, not because of what was said, but because of what remained unsaid. Fans were no longer waiting for official statements. They were reading between moments, between appearances, between absences. Faye's schedule became noticeably tighter. Appearances that were once casual now felt deliberate. When she showed up, she was focused, composed, almost guarded, as if she knew the attention had shifted and chose not to feed it. Every interaction with her new partner, even the smallest one, carried weight. A shared laugh caught by a distant camera, a hand gesture during rehearsal, the way they naturally matched each other's pace without looking like they were trying. People began to say this wasn't just a partnership built for a project. It looked lived in, comfortable, like something that had already gone through its awkward phase in private. That's when the tone of the conversation changed. Instead of asking who this partner was, fans started asking what this partnership meant. Was this a temporary collaboration meant to test a new image? Or was it a long-term shift that would reshape how Faye is perceived going forward? Industry watchers leaned toward the latter. You don't protect something this carefully unless you plan to invest in it. At the same time, whispers from Yoko's side slowly evolved. The word emergency began to fade, replaced by quieter language. Adjustment, recovery, reflection. Those close to the production hinted that the pause had forced conversations that were overdue. About workload, about boundaries, about direction. Yoko herself remained silent, but her silence felt different now. Less alarming, more intentional. Then came the first sign that she was reclaiming control. A single appearance, brief, no press, no fanfare, just enough to let people know she was present, aware, and choosing her next move carefully. The message was subtle but clear. She wasn't disappearing. She was recalibrating. That shift caused fans to reflect on how quickly narratives are built and how fragile they can be. Just days earlier, panic had dominated timelines. Now, patience replaced it. Support, respect for the pause. And in that calm, comparisons inevitably surfaced. Faye moving forward at full speed. Yoko slowing down with purpose. Neither approach felt wrong. They just felt different. The contrast made 2026 feel unpredictable in a way fans weren't used to. No clean arcs. No synchronized milestones. Just two evolving stories unfolding independently, yet still emotionally linked in the minds of those who had followed both journeys for years. As for Faye's new partner, the industry finally began acknowledging what fans already knew. This wasn't a filler role. This person brought their own weight, their own following, their own quiet reputation for depth over spectacle. Together, they formed something balanced but charged, the kind of pairing that doesn't scream for attention but commands it anyway. Behind the scenes, creative teams reportedly adjusted scripts to lean into their dynamic. Scenes were rewritten. Dialogue softened. Moments lingered longer than originally planned. Those changes don't happen unless something unexpected clicks. And when it clicks, everything shifts. Yoko's project, meanwhile, resumed cautiously. Not at full speed, but with intention. Fewer hours, more control. A renewed sense that her presence mattered more than the pace of production. People close to the set described the atmosphere as calmer, more respectful, almost protective. Fans noticed that too. Support messages replaced speculation. The narrative turned from crisis to comeback, even without a formal announcement. Sometimes, recovery doesn't need words. It just needs space. By now, it was clear that 2026 wasn't about shock value anymore. The initial surprise had evolved into something deeper. A reminder that careers don't move in straight lines. That growth can look like acceleration or pause, and both can be powerful. Faye's new chapter was unfolding in real time, bold and unapologetic. Yoko's was taking shape quietly, with care and intention. Two different rhythms, both valid, both compelling. And fans were watching not because of scandal, but because of honesty. Because beneath the leaks, the pauses, the unexpected reveals, there was something real happening. Change. And once change begins, there's no going back to the way things were before. What made everything feel even more intense was the realization that neither Faye nor Yoko was trying to control the narrative anymore. There were no carefully worded interviews. No sudden social media posts designed to calm nerves or spark excitement. The usual industry playbook was missing, and in its absence, something far more human took over. Fans began to notice how Faye carried herself differently. Not louder, not more dramatic, just steadier, as if she had already made peace with the reactions she knew would come. When asked indirect questions about future plans, she smiled and redirected the conversation back to the work itself. That choice spoke volumes. It suggested confidence, not uncertainty. Insiders hinted that Faye had fought for this partnership, that it wasn't handed to her, and it certainly wasn't imposed. She had reportedly turned down safer options before committing to this one. That detail alone changed how people interpreted everything. This wasn't a surprise reveal meant to shock. It was a calculated risk, taken deliberately. And risks always divide opinion. Some fans embraced the change immediately, praising her courage and growth. Others struggled, clinging to familiarity, unsure how to let go of what they had imagined for her future. The fandom didn't fracture overnight, but subtle lines appeared. Conversations became more passionate. Expectations shifted. Meanwhile, Yoko's return, when it finally happened, was understated but powerful. No dramatic comeback announcement, just her stepping back onto set, visibly calmer, moving at her own pace. Crew members later described that day as emotional, not because of chaos, but because of relief. The tension that had once filled the space was gone. It became clear that the pause had forced everyone to slow down and reassess. Scripts were adjusted again. Not for spectacle, but for sustainability. Yoko's role was no longer about proving anything. It was about presence. Fans felt that shift immediately. Scenes filmed after her return carried a different energy. Softer, more grounded, less urgency, more intention. Viewers who had followed her career recognized it as a turning point, not a setback. As both stories continued unfolding side by side, people began to see them not as competing headlines, but as reflections of two artists choosing honesty over expectation. Faye leaned into momentum, trusting her instincts. Yoko leaned into restraint, trusting her limits. And then something unexpected happened. The conversation changed again. Instead of asking who was winning 2026, fans started asking why they felt so invested in both journeys. Why one person's bold step forward and another's careful pause could coexist without one diminishing the other. The answer was simple, yet rarely acknowledged. Because both stories were real. There were no villains here. No betrayals. No dramatic fallouts. Just growth happening in different forms, at different speeds. And that authenticity resonated far more deeply than any manufactured drama ever could. As for Faye's new partner, their bond continued to strengthen quietly. They didn't play into speculation. They didn't deny it either. They let the work speak. And with each new behind-the-scenes glimpse, it became harder to argue against what was visible on screen. Chemistry matured into trust. Trust turned into consistency.